Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the ever merciful. Alhamdulillah. All praise is due to Allah. Alladhi arsala rasulahu bil huda. The one who sent his messenger with the guidance. Wa dinil haqqi. And the religion of truth. Liyudhhirahu ala dini kullihi. In order to make it uppermost over all religion. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. And sufficient is Allah as witness. وَأَشْهَدُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And I testify openly that no one has any right to be worshipped other than Allah. وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. He's alone, sharing that right with no one. إِقْرَارًا بِهِ وَتَوْحِيدًا. I emphasize that as my testimony of Tawheed, and I ratify it. وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. And I testify openly that Muhammad was his servant and messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallama tasliman mazida. May Allah raise his rank and that of his family and companions, and grant them all an abundant amount of peace and security. Amma ba'ad, as for what follows, then we thank Allah Ta'ala, the one who has gathered us here at Al-Masjid Al-Awwal in the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in order to continue our study of Al-Aqidah Al-Wasitiyah, the Wasitiyah text on Creed by Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Abd al-Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani rahimahullah ta'ala. What year did he die? 728. Barakallahu feekum. 728. Rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'a. May Allah the Most High have an abundant amount of mercy upon him. We've been studying his Wasitiyah text in our classes, and we've arrived at the 10th and 11th points about the knowledge of Allah Ta'ala and its all-encompassing and comprehensive nature. We read the 10th and 11th points last week as Sheikh Ubaid groups these 2 points as we've separated them in the workbooks. The Sheikh Al-Alama Ubaid ibn Abdullah Ibn Sulaiman al-Jabiri, he puts them together. So we're doing a 2-lesson study of these 2 lessons. I'm going to read at this time lesson 10 and 11 from the workbooks, and we'll pick up where we left off, which is actually lesson 11, but it's all connected, it's all on one topic. So Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, وَقَوْلُهُ وَهُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. And his statement that he is the ever-knowing, the all-wise, that's from Surah Al-Tahrim. وَهُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْخَبِيرُ. In another verse, Allah is the all-wise, the ever-aware. يَعْلَمُ مَا يَرِجُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا. He knows all things that go down into the earth and all things that come out of it. وَمَا يَنْزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَا يَعْرُجُ فِيهَا. And as well all things that descend from the sky and all things which ascend up into it. The 2 opening verses of Surah Saba. وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو. And in another verse Allah says, and with him are the keys of the unseen, none know them other than him. ويعلم ما في البر والبحر. And he knows all that is on land and all that is at sea. وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها. And no leaf falls except that he knows it. ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. There is no seed in the depths of the earth, and no fresh, moist thing, nor any dried thing, except that it is written in a clear record. That's the 59th verse of Surah Al-An'am. And then on page 21 of our workbooks, lesson 11 continues that topic. وَقَوْلُهُ وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَى وَلَا تَضَعُ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِهِ. And his statement, no female carries any offspring in the womb, nor does she deliver it except by his knowledge. That's the 47th verse of Surah Fussilat. وَقَوْلُهُ. And his statement, لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, in order for you to know that Allah is fully capable of all things. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا, and that Allah has indeed encompassed all things by knowledge. And that is the 12th verse of Surah Al-Talaq. وَقَوْلُهُ, and his statement, إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ, and verily Allah, He is Ar-Razzaq, the ever providing, Dhul Quwwa, the possessor of might, and Al-Mateen, the strong one, from Surah Al-Dhariyat, the 58th verse. So looking at this 11th point in our workbook, we're going to pick up in the explanation of Sheikh Ubaid right there, and the book is called Al-Khutuf Al-Janiyah, and I am on page number 80 at the bottom. Page number 80 at the bottom, where the Shaykh Hafidhahullah Ta'ala says, Al-Ayatul Khamisa, the 5th verse, meaning these are 7 verses in lessons 10 and 11, all on the topic of knowledge. Knowledge of Allah Ta'ala as an attribute of perfection and completeness. Qawluhu Ta'ala, this 5th verse is the statement of Allah, the Most High, وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَى وَلَا تَضَعُ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِهِ, and no female carries any fetus, nor does she deliver it except by His knowledge. Al-ma'na, the meaning of that is أَنَّهُ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى الْمُحِيطِ, that from His all-encompassing, all-comprehensive knowledge is al-hamlu wal-wad'u, is the carrying of fetuses, the carrying of babies in the wombs, and the delivery of those babies. The hamal is the carrying, and the wada is the birthing of those babies. فَهُوَ الَّذِي يَعْلَمُ وَقْتَ الْحَمْلِ وَوَقْتَ الْوَضْعِ, so He alone is the one who knows the time of the conception and the carrying, and the time of the delivery as well, meaning with comprehensive and precise knowledge. وَلَا يَعْلَمُ أَحَدٌ بِالْحَمْلِ وَلَا بِوَضْعِهِ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِ اللَّهِ subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no one knows anything about the pregnancy, the carrying of the baby, or its delivery, except that it is from the knowledge of Allah, or by way of the knowledge of Allah, the Exalted and Most High. فَالْأَطِبَّاءُ, so the doctors, يَعْلَمُونَ بِمَا أَقْدَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, they only know that which Allah has given them the capability to have knowledge of. يعلمون بعد تكوين الحمل هذا الحمل ذكر أو أنثى, they know after the fetus comes together in the womb that this fetus is going to be male or female. لكن قبل ذلك لا يعلمون شيئا, however before that period of time they don't know anything, meaning about the fetus. وكذلك الوضع هم يتوقعون أنه بقي على الوضع كذا وكذا. Similarly is the delivery. They assume that they can expect that there remains such and such amount of days, weeks, amount of time before the delivery. لكن الساعة والدقيقة من ليل أو نهار, however the actual time, the precise time, the day or the hour and the minute, and the day or the night, حتى الساعة لم يبلغني أن الأطباء يعلمون ذلك. Till this hour of hours, I don't have any knowledge that has reached me that the doctors would know anything about that, meaning the precise knowledge. وما أظنهم يصلون إلى هذا أبدا, nor do I believe that they would ever arrive at such knowledge, meaning the precise knowledge. And I've mentioned to you last week, when the people say, in criticism of our religion, your book says no one knows what's in the wombs other than Allah. And here's a sonogram. Here's a picture of your baby. Here is the length of the femur. Here's the length of the backbone. Here is the gender. Here's the blood type. Look what we know about what's in the womb. What's the response?
At the inception, they don't know that.
Okay, so they've been given access to this knowledge. This amount of knowledge they have. Look at the size of the backbone. Look at the size of the leg. Look at the gender. Look at the blood type. How much knowledge is that, all things considered? Very little. Okay, what kind of profession will this child have? When will this child die? How long will his lifespan be? Right? Will he have children, be married multiple times, one time divorced? Will he be killed as a youth? Will he live as a, will he be from the people of paradise or the people of the hellfire? The reality of this human being, what does he know about this human being? Some very surface level basic ideas of shape only. So when it comes to the knowledge of Allah that He has told us we don't have knowledge of, then it's true. They don't know what is in that womb. They don't know if it's shaqi or sa'id. They don't know if it's a person who will be of everlasting bliss in paradise or in the hellfire. Whether this person will be helpful to society or harmful to society. Whether this person will be sick, or healthy. All of these details. What they do know is a tiny little drop of knowledge, which doesn't amount to anything more than a few hints that one could possibly use to assist a baby that might need some special assistance in delivery. That's about it. The baby's a little too large. The baby's small. The baby might need some assistance after it's born. The baby has a weak lung or something. These kinds of things, that's all they know. Very basic ideas about that fetus right now. They don't know the reality of what's in the womb, and no one knows that except Allah Ta'ala. When Allah Ta'ala tells us in the hadith of As-Sadiq al-Masduq, these matters of what's in the womb, right? The angel comes and blows into the womb. Which things? 4 matters. The angel comes and blows 4 matters into the fetus, in the womb of every child. The lifespan. Do they know that? No. What else? Sa'id or shaqi, blissful or miserable, meaning a person of paradise or a person of the hellfire. Can they know that? Not a clue. No indication at all do they have. What else? Amaluhu. What kind of deeds will he do? Do they have a clue about this? Nothing. What else? Rizquhu, the provision, rich, poor. So these are the main keys of knowledge that are connected to who this person will be. These are the most important matters about what makes this baby a person and what type of person will this baby be. Do they have any of this? Nothing, not a hint of any of those 4 matters. Or you could probably list 100 more matters that are of importance as well that they have not a clue about. So they only know some very basic ideas. So we say, for example, the one who knows a pinch of knowledge, a tiny drop, compared to the ocean that's available, do we say he's very knowledgeable or mostly ignorant? We say he's overwhelmed by ignorance. And that is the case. We've only been given a little of knowledge. So is it true to say, now we know what's in the wombs? And so the verse from the Quran about no one knows what's in the wombs except Allah is wrong and your book is deficient? No. Comparatively, the people who know something, the exclusive people who have special skills and tools, who are able to learn a couple of very basic matters about what's in the womb, comparatively, they have no real knowledge of who this person is and what they will be. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Al-ayatu sadisa. The 6th verse then, out of the 7 verses. Allah Ta'ala, Allah the Most High says, لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So that you know that Allah is over all things, qadir, all capable, all powerful. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. And further that Allah has indeed encompassed all things by knowledge. That is the 12th verse of Surah At-Talaq. Now the Shaykh brings us to the beginning of that verse. He says, وَقَدْ قَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى قَبْلَهَا. And Allah the Most High said before this, meaning in the beginning of that verse, اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ وَمِنَ الْأَرْضِ مِثْلَهُنَّ. Allah alone is the one who created 7 heavens, and of the earth its likes, meaning 7 earths, as the scholars have explained. يَتَنَزَّلُ الْأَمْرُ بَيْنَهُنَّ. The affair comes down between those two, between the heavens and the earth. The affair meaning the command of Allah Ta'ala, the decree of Allah Ta'ala. ثُمَّ قَالَ. And then He said, لِتَعْلَمُوا. In order for you to know, أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That verily Allah is over everything with capability and power. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. And that verily Allah is encompassing all things by way of knowledge. فَهَذِهِ الْآيَةُ عَامَّةٌ دَلَّتْ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةِ أُمُورٍ. So this verse is general, and it proves three things. The third thing is going to be two parts, so you could actually say it proves four things, as you'll see when we get to that third thing. Al-ula, the first of those three things. عَظِيمُ قُدْرَةِ اللَّهِ, how great the capability of Allah is. The power and capability of Allah is. Ta'ala, the Most High. في قوله, that's found in his statement, الله الذي خلق سبع سماوات ومن الأرض مثلهن. Allah alone is the one who created 7 heavens and of the earths its likes. الثانية, the second thing, تصريفه شؤون خلقه في قوله تعالى يتنزل الأمر بينهن. The fact that he manages and he directs all of the affairs of his creation, that which is found in his statement, and he is the Most High, the affair descends down, it comes down. The command of Allah Ta'ala comes down between those places, between the heavens and the earth. الثالثة, and the third thing, which again is 2 points, and he calls them al-awwal wa thani. The first is عموم قدرته subhanahu wa ta'ala, the generality, the all-encompassing nature of his qudra. The first one was عظيم قدرته, the greatness of his capabilities. Now, عموم قدرته, the all-encompassing nature of his abilities, the exalted and most high. وأنه لا يعجزه شيء في الأرض, and that nothing is beyond his capability. في الأرض ولا في السماء, not on earth and not in the heavens. وَالثَّانِي, and the second part of this third point, وَهُوَ الشَّاهِدُ, and that is the point of reference that's intended by Ibn Taymiyyah here. That is إِحَاطَةُ عِلْمِهِ بِجَمِيعِ مَخْلُوقَاتِهِ, the comprehensive nature of his knowledge and how it encompasses all of his created beings in entirety. لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, in order for you to know that verily Allah is above all things with power and capability. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا, and that verily Allah has indeed encompassed all things by way of knowledge. وَالْمَعْنَى, the meaning is قَدْ أَحَاطَ عِلْمُهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, his knowledge has come around and encompassed and surrounded all things, meaning it is inclusive. فَلَا تَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ خَافِيَةٌ, so there is no subtle thing, no hidden thing that is hidden from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Al-ayatu sabi'ah, the 7th verse, meaning out of these 7 verses that are mentioned in points 10 and 11 in our workbooks, the last of them, and this is a challenge for people to follow along with the topic here. Look at the verse quoted here. قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ. Verily Allah, He is Ar-Razzaq, the all-providing, and the possessor of might and strength. طيب. This verse, as you know, is from Surah Al-Dhariyat, the 58th verse. Where is in this verse the proof for this topic? The Shaykh said these are 7 verses on the topic of ilm, the knowledge of Allah. Where is the proof for the knowledge of Allah in this verse? What's mentioned is what? Provisions, rizq, and quwwah, and matana, strength and greatness, strength and might, you could say. Where's the ilm? Okay, so not directly from the wording of the text, but something behind or necessarily included in the meaning that is found in the text. So today we're going to review dilalat al-nusus, how an evidence can prove something. Sometimes it's direct. Allah is alim. So then we have evidence that Allah has knowledge. And sometimes it's by way of al-luzum, by way of mulazama, or iltizam, you could say. That if you establish that Allah has rizq, He is the all-providing, He is Ar-Razzaq, then that must indicate knowledge, because in order to provide for everyone, you have to know who they are, where they are, what they need. You have to know what they need, where it is, and how it is to get to them. And you have to facilitate all of that. So it not only indicates knowledge, but it also indicates wisdom. It also indicates qudra, capability. The fact that Allah Ta'ala is ar-razaq, and not a living thing exists except by way of His rizq. We can say, bi dilalat al-iltizam, by way of what's necessarily included in Allah being the all-providing one, is a number of affairs that are logical conclusions but not mentioned in the text. Logically, then He must be all-knowing. Logically, He must be capable. How could He provide if He didn't have qudra? Someone has provisions, but he can't deliver his provisions to the one he wants to provide for. Then that one is not qadir. That one is not a razaq, then is he? He has the rizq, but he can't deliver it. He doesn't have qudra. So he must have all of these things by way of a logical conclusion that Allah is ar-razaq. Barakallahu feekum. And we'll get into that a little bit as we understand the topic from Shaykh Ubaid. So ar-razaq, the all-providing one, sighatu mubalagha ala wazni fa'al. This is a very expressive noun. That means the one who is described with that attribute again and again with abundance. So he has rizq all of the time with an abundant amount of rizq. Not just a raziq, someone who provided once or twice, but a razzaq, someone who always continually provides. That's the scale in the Arabic language, the Arabic science of sarf. Fa'al. Do you know another word that's from the names of Allah that comes on this scale of fa'al? Al-Ghaffar. So He's not just ghafir, He forgives, but He is Ghaffar. What does that indicate? How does that enhance the meaning? Marratan ba'da marratan ba'da marra. Again and again and again He forgives and He forgives and He forgives. So it's not just that He may forgive once or twice, but He is Ghaffarun, all of the time forgiving. And the word fa'al itself, as a scale, it has a meaning. The one who does again and again. In Surah Al-Buruj is a description of Allah. Not a name, but a description. What is it? Fa'alun lima yurid. The one who always, continually, without someone interrupting him, stopping him, or being capable of any of that, He continually does whatsoever He chooses. Fa'alun lima yurid. Is one of His names al-Fa'al? No, not correct to establish that as a name of Allah Ta'ala, but rather it is called a khabar. We describe Allah Ta'ala with that description. Fa'alun lima yurid. The one who does whatever He so chooses. Another one? Tawwab. So Allah Ta'ala yatubu ala ibadihi. Allah accepts the tawbah of His servants. So He is ta'ibun alayhim. He accepts their repentance. We're ta'ibun ilayhi. We are the repenters who repent unto Him. He is ta'ibun alayna, the one who accepts the repentance. But not once or twice. Rather, He is tawwabun, continually, always accepting that tawbah from His servants. Ahsan. Anyone have another example? Wahhab, nice. Not just a wahib. What's that from? Al-wahab, a gift being given. So He's the one who gives you gifts. So He's wahib, He's giving you something. But it's not just once or twice. It's your entire life. It's your blessings, all of them, all of your provisions. He is Al-Wahhab, the one who continually bestows, the ongoing, continual bestower of all that is good and beneficial and wholesome, and so on. So names that come like this on the scale of Fa'al, they have a very rich meaning that intensifies or emphasizes the attribute and makes it the attribute that is done again and again and again. Tabarak wa ta'ala. Ay kathirur rizq. So the one who is razaq, he is the one who is abundant in his provisions. فَالْخَلْقُ كُلُّهُمْ أَهْلُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَأَهْلُ الْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. So the creation in its entirety, all of the dwellers of the heavens and all of the dwellers of the earth, and everything in between, مِنْ عَوَالِمَ كُلُّهُمْ فُقَرَاءُ إِلَيْهِ. Of all created beings, they are all in dire need of Him. They are all fuqara, poor, and in need of Him. فَهُوَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. So He provides for whomsoever He chooses. وَيَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. And He extends that provision for whomsoever He chooses. وَيَقْدِرُ فِي حَقِّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِحِكْمَةٍ. And then He sets amounts of greater or less for everyone that He chooses to do so with wisdom, with hikmah. And these words are used in some of the verses of Allah Ta'ala. Allahu يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ. In many verses of the Quran, Allah is the one who extends the provisions and determines their exact nature for whomsoever He chooses. Look at Surah Al-Ra'd, for example, the 26th verse. ذُو الْقُوَّةِ, the possessor of quwwah. Dhu, the one who possesses something. Al-quwwah, the thing possessed, that is strength. Al-quwwatu ma'naha al-mana'a. Strength means here al-mana'a, the ability to defend, the ability to protect, and strength in general. We know what strength is. وَهِيَ مُرَادِفَةٌ لِلْقُدْرَةِ. It is a synonym for another attribute called qudra. That's why we say Allah is above all things with power, sometimes translating ala kulli shay'in qadir. He's over all things with capability, or sometimes we'll say He is over all things with power and capability, because quwwah and qudra are somewhat synonymous. And as a rule, remember, in the Arabic language, anytime we hear this word is a synonym for that word, as a principle, that status of being a synonym, is it absolute? Is it that this word can always take the place entirely of that word? Or is it they overlap in some of their meanings, but there's always going to be some times where this word will not equally apply in the place of the other word? That's actually a theory in language that is discussed in every different language. Arabic, English, Japanese, everything. Is there such a thing as two words which are pure, absolute synonyms? One can always take the place of the other in every situation. At-tahqiq, the correct position is no. And that's what language is for. Language doesn't have two words that are exactly the same. Why did those people use that second word when it doesn't have any different usage than the first word? Why did that second word come about? Why did they use that word? They would only name something with a second name when there's a need to distinguish between it and the other things that would have that name. So there's that time, that time of need where the synonym now is needed to be used because it doesn't apply to the previously used term. It's a language theory issue, and it's been discussed by the scholars of al-usul, al-muradifat, synonyms in the Arabic language. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala talked about it in his usul al-tafsir, in his foundations of tafsir. It is an important issue that should be reviewed. So when you read tafsir and you see the meaning of a sirat is al-jisr or a tariq al-wadih, the meaning of a sirat is the straight path. It is a wide open path. That synonymous explanation, like a sirat is a tariq. Does that mean every sirat can always be called a tariq? No. And every tariq can always be called a sirat? No. But it is an explanation by way of synonym. That's all. طيب. Al-mateen عظمة القوة ونهايتها. And the word al-mateen, the description of Allah and the name of Allah, al-mateen, it means the one who has great strength, that has reached the epitome of strength and the completeness of strength. فَاللَّهُ مُتَّصِفٌ بصفة الرزق وصفة القوة وصفة المتانة وهي نهاية القوة. So Allah, the mighty and majestic, is described with the attribute of providing and the attribute of strength and the attribute of matana, that is great strength, reaching completeness in strength. وليس هي المتانة التي نعرفها ضد نحافة الجسم. And this matana, when we say so-and-so is mateen, in modern Arabic, it could mean heavy or fat, overweight. He's mateen. And that's not the meaning. We describe Allah Ta'ala, hasha wa ta'ala Allah. The meaning is greatness of strength. As for the usage of today, using mateen to be the opposite of nahif, a skinny person is nahif, and a heavier person is mateen, and that is not the intended, the physical shape of a person. That is not the intended meaning in the name of Allah. Al-Mateen. وَهَذِهِ الْآيَةُ جَاءَتْ تَعْلِيلًا لِآيَتَيْنِ قَبْلَهَا مِنْ سُورَةِ الذَّارِيَاتِ. And so this verse comes as an explanation of the two verses before it in Surah Al-Dhariyat. وَهُمَا قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and they are his statement, and he is the Most High. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, and I have not created jinn kind nor mankind except that they are to worship me. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُم مِّن رِزْقٍ, I do not want from them any provisions. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونِي, nor do I want from them to feed me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ, verily Allah, He is Ar-Razaq, the one who always provides. ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ, the possessor of strength and might. فإنه أولا أخبر سبحانه وتعالى عن الحكمة التي من أجلها خلق الثقلين. So firstly, He, the Exalted and Most High, has informed us about His wisdom. That is, behind why He has created the two species, jinn and mankind. وَهِيَ عِبَادَتُهُ وَحْدَهُ, and that wisdom is for the worship of Him alone. وَأَخْبَرَ ثَانِيًا وَهُوَ تَأْكِيدٌ لِذَلِكَ, and then He informed us secondarily, and that is to confirm and emphasize the first point, أَنَّهُ لَا حَاجَةَ لَهُ إِلَى هَذَا الْخَلْقِ, that He has no need for this creation. He is not in need of them. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ, I don't want from them any provision. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ, notice the kasra on the noon. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونِي, and the ya is taken away with a kasra left to indicate the ya taken away. And I don't want for them to feed me. ثُمَّ أَكَدَ بِالْآيَةِ الْأَخِيرَةِ, and then He emphasized further in the final verse, إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ, verily Allah, He is the ever providing, the possessor of strength and might. Shaykh Ubaid Hafidhahullah Ta'ala then says, وَهَا هُنَا سُؤَالٌ, so here's a question. مَا الشَّاهِدُ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ, what is the reference intended from this verse? عَلَى إِحَاطَةِ عِلْمِ اللَّهِ بِجَمِيعِ مَخْلُوقَاتِهِ, the evidence that would be a proof for the all-encompassing knowledge of Allah and how He knows all about His entire creation. Where's the evidence? He says, Ash-shahidu. The intended reference in the verse is كونه عز وجل متكفلا برزق جميع المخلوقات. It is that He has taken it upon Himself to provide for the entire creation. هذا يدل على إحاطة علمه. This proves the comprehensive nature of His ilm. Now I said we're going to explore that issue a little bit. Dilalat an-nusus, how an evidence indicates something or proves something. So a two-part breakdown that's important. There's dilalatul nas and dilalatul mafhum. The evidence of the text by way of its actual wording, what it actually orders or forbids, or what it actually reports or tells you. So a classic example used by the scholars of usul would be the statement of Allah Ta'ala, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ. Don't say to the two of them, uff. Uff is a slight show of dissatisfaction. Don't say to your parents, meaning either one of them, uff. So that's a prohibition of what word? It's a single word, uff. That word is specifically forbidden. So what about a man punching his father? Does that verse forbid a man from punching his father? Yes. You say yes. But the wording of the verse is don't say uff to them. There's no mention of a strike. But you say yes, there's evidence in this verse for striking them being forbidden. And where's the evidence?
If you can't say uff, then you can't do anything greater than that.
That's called fahwa al-khitab. Even more so. If you can't even say uff, then what about saying anti kalba, you're a dog? Or a word of clear abuse? Or cursing them? Or insulting them? Or hitting them, or doing even worse than them. In America, we have to even mention killing them. Subhanallah. So then, that verse Is it only a proof for the word uff being haram, or is that verse something that can be applied to hundreds and hundreds of bad actions in treatment of one's parents? Absolutely. So then, not by the nas, but by the mafhum. Not by the specific wording of the text, but there's dilala, there's still dalil in the ayat. It's not dalil al-nas, it's not the wording, it's the mafhum. It's what is understood there. In this case, it's mafhum al-muwafaqa. It is what is min babin awla, what is even more rightly included in that prohibition. If you can't say uff, then how would you dare hit them? And that verse does prove that point. Not bin nas, but bil mafhum. Tayyib? So now, generally, the more you understand about principles of mafhum, the more you'll be able to apply a text from the book or the sunnah to a number of different scenarios. Imagine the person who says a word of abuse to his mother, and then someone says this ayat to him to warn him and to tell him to fear Allah, and he says, no, that verse only says uff, and I didn't say uff. This is qalil al-fahm, a person with poor understanding, very limited understanding. He's not able to apply that verse where it needs to be applied in order for that verse of the book of Allah to actually affect his behavior. He says, the verse forbids me from uff, and I never say uff, and I'm good. But he doesn't understand al-maqsad, al-shar'i, the goal behind the verse. What's the point? The prohibition is not just ta'abbudi, just the word uff, that's offensive to Allah. Call her a kalba, call your mother a dog, no problem. But just not the word uff. Is that what Allah revealed? No, Allah revealed the slightest show of displeasure is forbidden, so you must understand from that every equal act of mistreatment or greater than that is forbidden, min babin awla, even more so. So this helps us understand that one verse which forbids a thing or orders a thing can be applied to multiple scenarios, and that's how the scholars look at texts with principles in istidlal, principles in tatbiq, how to apply this evidence, how to apply it to scenarios. I'll give you now a three-way breakdown of texts, of, let's say, the words in the text. Al-alfaz. The words of the text can be understood in one of three ways. And that is by way of dilalatul mutabaqa, and dilalatul at-tadammun, and dilalatul iltizam. So mutabaqa, the first phrase, means applying that word for everything that it includes. For every single thing that should be included in the meaning of that word. So when I say that Allah Ta'ala, based on our previous lessons, if you've been paying attention, Allah is Al-Hakim. When I say, Ana a'budu Al-Hakima, I worship Al-Hakim. What did I just refer to when I use the word Al-Hakim? You can say Allah. All right. Is there anything else? An attribute, right? Or an action of hikmah. I worship Dhu Hikmatin. Or Ana a'bud Dha Hikmatin. I worship the possessor of wisdom. He's Hakim, so he possesses hikmah, wisdom. What else does the word Hakim include? Have you been paying attention? What is it? Before we get there, directly from the word Hakim, the Ha, the Kaf, and the Mim. We've got hikmah and something else. Al-hukm al-tam. Dhul ahkam al-adila al-tama. The one whose legislative rulings are perfect and complete. Right? And there's a connection between hikmah and legislation. But also, hukm here is mulk, authority. The one who decrees things that you may not know are Hakim. He has decreed the death of someone and it saddens you. But he is Al-Hakim, the one whose hukm, the one who's ruling, the one whose verdict is not overturned by anyone. Tayyib. All of this is by way of, when I say I worship Al-Hakim, I mean the possessor of wisdom, the possessor of absolute rule, whose rule is unchallenged and not similar to anyone's rule, the one whose rule and legislation is perfect and complete. I worship Allah, Al-Hakim. All of that is included in one word, Al-Hakim. That's by way of mutabaqa. Mutabaqa. By way of tadammun, maybe I only intend one of those things. Could a person possibly use the word Al-Hakim and he only intends to refer to Allah? Like, do you worship Al-Hakim or Al-La'in? Do you worship Allah or the devil? So here, I don't really mean to refer to the wisdom or the rule. I just mean Allah. So I intend here, and Fulan is Abdul Hakim. He's a worshipper of Allah. And it's not within my thought right now to establish these attributes of wisdom and absolute rule. I'm just referring to Allah by one of His names. That's by way of tadammun, where you don't intend all of the meanings, you just intend one of them. You say worship Al-Hakim and no one else. The point is tawheed here, worship Allah. طيب, so that's by way of tadammun. And then sometimes I might say, هذا من حكمة الحكيم. This is from the wisdom of Al-Hakim. And I mean here, the one who has hikmah. I'm talking about wisdom. And so the whole point of me mentioning the name Al-Hakim is to make a reference to the divine wisdom of Allah Ta'ala. طيب? This ruling is from Al-Hakim Al-Alim. And so my point in mentioning the name Al-Hakim is a reference to wisdom. That's by way of tadammun. Part of what that name indicates. Possibly not every single thing that that name applies to, but one intended angle of what it could apply to. That's by way of tadammun. Then the other one is iltizam. Both of those are nas. As we've mentioned before, nas and mafhum. The tadammun and the mutabaqa are both from dilalatun nas. You're applying the text to what it's been revealed for, to what it's been, to the meanings that it carries. Now we're going outside of the nas. We're going into the mafhum. We're going into al-iltizam, a necessary logical conclusion that is understood from the usage of that word. To make an easy example, the word house. The word house. What does it refer to by way of mutabaqa? Does it refer to the walls alone? No. The walls and the roof and everything, the foundation, the door, the window, the stairs, the basement, the attic, the chimney, everything. The bedroom, the kitchen, the bathroom, the plumbing, all of that is part of the word house. So he owns this house. I mean the word house here with dilala mutabaqa. He owns all of that. He owns the plumbing, he owns the walls, he owns the windows, and all of that, right? The word house by way of tadammun could refer to the door, the living room only. Yeah? So when I say he came to my house and visited me, maybe he came through the door, sat in the living room for a time and then left. He did not come to the bedroom and the kitchen and the bathroom and the basement and the attic. But the word house is properly used here, right? By way of tadammun. Al-baytu yatadammanu ghurfatan wa matbakhan wa abwaban. Like that. The house, the word house includes any of these things. You can use the word house and you only mean part of the house. You don't mean the entire house. That's by way of tadammun. Now by way of iltizam. What does the word house indicate? The word house indicates there's a bani. There's a mabna, so there's a bani. There's someone who built the house. Maybe you don't know who he is, but there's someone who built it. And then when you look at the house, if it is an upright house, it's not falling over, it's 50 years old, then you say there's probably knowledge and wisdom involved in the building of the house. Make sense? And if you see a house that was built 2 years ago and it fell over, and the top floor collapsed on the bottom floor, then what iltizam could you make here? A lack of wisdom, a lack of planning, a lack of knowledge by those who built it, and so on. That's all iltizam. That's all coming from iltizam of the word house. These ideas that are behind the idea of a house. There's a house, so there must be a builder of that house. There must be a need for that house. There must be an intention for that house. There must be a place. There must be a plot of land, right? There must be, probably there's a deed. Probably there's other things. These are iltizamat. These are things that you understand are necessarily logically included in the idea of there being a house. But they're not actually the house themselves. These are things that are external and logical conclusions about the presence of the house. So now, let's come to the name of Allah Ta'ala, Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman by way of mutabaqa refers to Allah and mercy. It refers to Allah and it refers to His mercy. Ar-Rahman. By way of tadammun, what does it refer to? Either Allah or His attribute of mercy. One or the other. That's by way of tadammun. Ismur Rahman yatadammanu. Dilala ala that wa dilala ala sifa. And then, if he's Ar-Rahman, what do we understand by way of iltizam? There must be a marhum. If Allah Ta'ala is Ar-Rahman, the Rahim, the one who extends mercy, then there has to be someone who's a recipient of that mercy. That's by way of a logical thinking through of the attribute. If Allah is merciful, then there must be some creation that is enjoying the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. Also, He must have the ability to deliver that mercy. Also, what else? Maybe there are those who are deprived of that mercy. Naam, as well. Ar-Rahman, there are those who are deprived of that mercy. And some of the scholars would argue that point and say Ar-Rahman is a reference to the all-encompassing mercy that no one is deprived of. That's the mercy of the dunya only. So there is no living thing except it has mercy, and that's the mercy referred to in the name Ar-Rahman. As for the name Ar-Rahim, then this one, يَتَضَمَّنُ الرَّحْمَةَ الْخَاصَّةِ. This name has the attribute of specific mercy. وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا. And He is and has always been for the believers, Rahim. There's a special, exclusive kind of mercy for them. طيب? So Ar-Rahman is an indication that there is marhumun, that there are people who have received this mercy. And if you know the meaning of mercy, then you know that those people would be happy. Those people would be blessed. Those people would be favored. And those who don't get that rahmah, they would be mahroom as well. They would be deprived and they would be unhappy if you understand the meaning of mercy and then you logically think it through. طيب? So then the name Ar-Razaq, because that's the 7th verse, He is Ar-Razaq. What does it indicate by way of mutabaqah? It's a reference to Allah and His attribute of providing. By way of tadammun, either this or that. And by way of iltizam, specifically what's intended by Ibn Taymiyyah. Al-ilm, knowledge. Because no one can provide effectively without knowledge. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Look how Allah Ta'ala addresses us. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. The one who creates, shouldn't he have ilm? Would it make sense that the Khallaq, the all-creating one who created everything, he's deficient in knowledge? Logically, you can't accept that. The one who created everything and every perfect system that we see in the greatest of the creation and in the tiniest microscopic levels of the creation, the perfection of all these systems in the creation of that creator, that indicates al-ilm al-muhit. That indicates not only knowledge, but comprehensive, exhaustive knowledge that covers every single thing. طيب. So Allah Ta'ala says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Should not the one who created have knowledge? Is that logical to think? Al-Khaliq Jahil, that the creator is ignorant? No. The logical understanding is الَّذِي يَخْلُقُ يَعْلَمُ. The one who creates, he knows. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. So then shouldn't the one who created have knowledge? And so likewise, Ar-Razaq also indicates by way of iltizam, not only knowledge, but quwwah, the strength, the ability, the qudra, the strength and ability to deliver that provision. If he's Razaq, that means he delivers his provisions. Does it also indicate hikmah, wisdom, especially when you get further descriptions? يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. He provides for whoever he wants, without limit, without accountability. Now, does it also prove anything else? What about mulk, dominion? He is the owner of the entire dominion because he is Ar-Razaq. So every attribute can possibly indicate a number of other attributes by way of iltizam. Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin, he stresses the importance of learning this dilala, learning about iltizam. He said, because by way of it, you learn how to process your thoughts and how to develop your istinbat, how to apply one evidence to multiple scenarios and to multiple individual situations. Now, refer to 1.4, chapter 1, the 4th sub-chapter of chapter 1 in the book called Al-Qawa'id Al-Muthla, the book by Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih Al-Uthaymeen, that's been translated as Exemplary Principles, published by Troyd. Look in the first chapter about the names of Allah, the fourth sub-chapter, Dilalatu Al-Mutabaqa wa Tadammun wal-Iltizam, and read those pages. And generally you would read those pages and have difficulty with them as it relates to understanding the names and attributes of Allah. I hope that by putting it here right along with the explanation of Sheikh Ubaid, it has maybe been opened up for the first time for some people who've read that book and really didn't get that little sub-chapter. Now it should maybe start to open up for you. And Allahu Tabarak wa Ta'ala knows best. Wallahu A'lam. If there's a question or concern or comment before we close, we'll take it at this time. 1.4. You can go to the top of Becca.net right now, and it's on the top of the main page of the website. It says something like ways of using evidences, mutabaqa, tadammun, and iltizam, and you can get a PDF which has the 4 pages of that subchapter, insha'Allah ta'ala. These issues enter into versatility in fiqh, understanding fiqh, being able to apply fiqh properly, being able to apply rulings to situations. It restrains the muqallid, the one who's a blind follower who can't think on his own. He doesn't know how to apply an evidence outside of what he's memorized. He knows this verse applies this to this scenario because that's the fact he memorized in his fiqh book. But as for what about a scenario which is close to it but has some different variables, he's incapable because he hasn't studied the dilalat, he hasn't studied the different ways that evidences are applied to different scenarios. It's very important, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen says, for the student of knowledge to become grounded in dilalat, especially iltizam. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Wallahu a'lam wa salli Allahumma wa sallim wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.